Okay, welcome everyone. We're glad to have you all and certainly appreciate the time you've taken out of your busy schedules to be with us today. We've got a great session prepared for you. But before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. Because we do have a large number of people on the webinar today, we have muted all the lines, but encourage you to submit questions to us via the Q&A feature in Zoom, which you'll see a little icon for in the interface at the bottom of your screen. We've got folks here today that will attempt to answer your questions real time, but if we don't get to them, we will stay on the call after the presentation portion ends so that we can address them. Also, the webinar is being recorded and we will share the recording with you via email after the event if you're interested in reviewing again or sharing with a colleague. Okay, let's jump in. So my name is Joe Greenspan. I'll be your host today to get things kicked off. We're fortunate to have ACT CEO Steve Oriola with us today as well, and he will share a few thoughts in a moment, as well as introduce our guest keynote speaker today, Ken Quigley from Qsales, who is a trusted partner of ours and a rich source of knowledge on the topic of CRM and accounting migration, which is the thrust of our presentation today. Okay, Steve, with that, I will hand it over to you.
Great, thanks, Joe, and welcome everyone. Really appreciate everyone taking time, as Joe said. As you, I'm sure, are aware, ACT is a very powerful tool. It's a CRM that really can do many things. It's got a very rich, deep set of features that we've had customers utilizing for years, actually decades. And really, sometimes the challenge with a product that's so powerful is how do I access and understand and use all of those powerful features, or at least the ones that I need. Well, ACT is not only powerful, it's quite customizable and extensible. And over the years, we've done lots and lots of that ourselves as a company, but also through our trusted vendor partnerships, one of which we're showcasing today. Really, what we want to walk through today is ACT with Qsales and show you that it's a really optimal small business tool set for you to utilize. So I want to thank everyone for their continued loyalty. Hopefully, you're already getting quite a bit out of ACT, but we do these webinars so that you can go even deeper and make it a richer tool for you and really make it your own. And that's the strength of ACT. So I want to thank Ken Quigley, CEO of Qsales, for being a longtime partner of ours and helping many of our customers have great success with ACT. And what Ken is going to walk you through today is ACT and our partnership with Qsales. So without further ado, I want to introduce Ken Quigley and take it away, Ken.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. So as Steve indicated, we're going to be covering Qsales today and how it integrates with ACT. And we're going to be covering three main themes. The first is how it saves you time. The second is how it helps you understand your contacts as customers. And lastly, how to find information faster and easier in ACT. So as I said, here's a few things that we'll be covering today in terms of saving time, understanding your contacts as customers, and then finding the information faster and easier. So let's jump into it. So what is Qsales? Qsales is an ACT add-on that works at both the program and database level to seamlessly integrate QuickBooks with ACT. It works at the data level by downloading all the transactions from QuickBooks into ACT so it becomes part of your database. So you can see here, or more specifically here, where the data gets downloaded into your database. At the program level, Qsales adds countless tools to help you in ACT create, edit, update, report on QuickBooks data right inside the program. Okay, but that's what Qsales does. But how it delivers on small business Nirvana and why people have been subscribing to it for over 10 years is, as I said, because it saves time, it helps people understand their contacts as customers, and it makes finding information faster and easier. So that's what we'll be showing you today. So for reference, this database I created from scratch only a couple of days ago. It was a blank database, and basically I created it from an old backup QuickBooks file from earlier this year. But however you set it up, whether it's with a new ACT database or an ACT database that's already in production, it's really easy to get started. So let's do that. So as I said, the first thing we're going to do is cover on how to save time. And one of the best ways to do that is avoid the duplication of labor. Now, in business, we generally add prospects to ACT and then re-enter them again into QuickBooks when they become customers. Qsales saves you a step by converting those prospects into customers in QuickBooks with no additional typing. So let's see how we do that. So we're in here, we've got the ubiquitous Chris Huffman, everyone's favorite ACT contact. And this contact is not in our QuickBooks. So I want to create him in QuickBooks, and I've got my QuickBooks over here. I want to create him in QuickBooks. So I click on this, and I've got the option to create a customer or link it to an existing customer. Because he's not in there, I'm going to click on create. It immediately identifies the company, and I click on create. Now, would I like to edit it? Now, this is always good because I can get that last chance to review all the details to make sure it's accurate, everything is good, and now I click on OK. Now that contact is a customer in QuickBooks, and the way that I can tell is I can see over here he's got an ID and he is linked. Okay, now you're going to run across some cases where you've got the contact in ACT and you've got the contact as a customer in QuickBooks, but you haven't linked them. So what we can do in that case, take this person here who, as you can see, is not linked, but is in the database. So I'm going to click on the same button. And in this case, I'm going to click on link. It finds it immediately. And I click on link. And now that contact is linked. Okay. So those are the two ways that you can either link or create a customer. And you've noticed that I haven't done any typing, and they're now in both places. Now, once the contacts are linked or created, I can then create any kind of transactions inside of ACT without pivoting over to QuickBooks. So let's go back to Chris Huffman. Okay, so I've got him, and he's on the phone and he wants to give me an order. I've just created him as a customer in ACT, and I would like to create an invoice for him. So up here, this is the toolbar that gets added. As I said, it creates, Qsales creates all kinds of features and functions within the program. So it adds this toolbar, and I can click on here and I can create an invoice, an estimate, a sales order, sales receipt, credit memo. I can even receive payment of an outstanding invoice. Okay, but in this case, I'm going to click on invoice, and now up pops the interface for creating an invoice. And what I can do, I can just simply say, let's say it's US. I can set the sales rep, and I can set the terms. And because Qsales imports in all of the products from QuickBooks into ACT, I now have access to all the tools and the data I need to create any kind of transaction I would normally in QuickBooks. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on here. I can type ahead. Okay, I can say Pro, okay, or I can say, and I'll just put in here, and it automatically defaults here as there's a tax code. I'm going to say, nope, I want it to be this tax code, and it will immediately pick up on that. Again, everything is being imported in, not just the products, but your terms, the sales reps, any classes that you've got. We use a lot of classes internally, okay, as well as the tax codes that you've got set up. So now I've got this done, and when I click save, that invoice, as you can see, 60525 is instantly created in QuickBooks. The way I know that is I can click on here, cancel and open in QuickBooks, and it will immediately pop over to that corresponding invoice. Okay, no searching, no nothing, no toggling and looking for customers and invoices. It does it automatically. Okay, now let's say Chris Huffman says, okay, I don't want an invoice. I want a quote. So how do I go about that? So instead of creating a postable transaction, which in this case doesn't exist, what we can do is we can create an opportunity, okay, and then create a quote from that opportunity. Now in QuickBooks, you can create an estimate, but that doesn't create an opportunity for you to follow up in. And more importantly, by creating estimates in QuickBooks, you put all your prospects in QuickBooks, which is really a place that should be reserved for customers. So in this case, I've just created him as a customer. I've got the option. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on opportunity. I created an opportunity in advance of this. Okay, nice, simple opportunity. And what I want to do is I want to quote on it, okay, because he's asked for a quote, not for an order. So what I can do is Qsales puts this little quoting for ACT tool up here. I click on here, and it immediately brings up the quoting interface. Now you'll notice all I've done is create an opportunity, okay, and it's doing everything else. There's no separate function to this. And I can then add things like shipping costs, deposit required, all the kinds of things that you expect from a professional quoting tool. And then you can either preview it, or you can just email it out, save to documents, or just save the quote, okay? But that's how easily you can set it up. I'm just going to save it in this case. Okay. Now, in the event that he looks at it and he says, fantastic, that's exactly what I wanted. Again, I don't have to go through any kind of duplication of labor. Okay. He says, he calls me up and he says, that's what I want. I accept the quote, he emails me that effect. I link it. I then click on convert to invoice. It recognizes in this case that this particular item is not in QuickBooks, so it creates it, okay? And I can say, let's just say fees, click on okay. Okay, and now, of course, let me just go here. Okay, and here is the transaction. Okay, I can set up the sales rep, but it basically pulled in the information here from the opportunity. I can set the class, I can set all the normal stuff. You can see that because he was created as a customer in ACT, or in ACT that was pushed over to QuickBooks, all his billing information is here. Okay, and when I click on save and close, okay, let me just change this. I think it's not liking that particular item. Okay, 60526. Now I can say, okay, that's great. Let's go back to the contact. And if I go under QB transactions, there it is. Okay, and I can click on here and I can then turn around and say, okay, that's great. Let's just do one final little bit of cleanup and I can pull it up in ACT. So you can see you can get a lot done by just converting things that you would normally create either in the sales process or in the closing process, create professional quotes, create instant transactions that really helps you, expedite the process and avoid duplication of labor. Okay, so we've received the quote. Okay, now before we dive into the transactions Qsales stores in your database, let's demonstrate how you can maintain your record, because one of the things that people get frustrated with is that when, let's say, someone moves or there's a change of contact and now you've got to update the record in both places, in both ACT and QuickBooks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this person has been replaced by Alex Huffman. Okay, his brother. Now, if I wanted to see what that looked like in QuickBooks, I can click on edit the record, and I can see that it still says Chris Huffman. But if I wanted to push the data that I had just updated in ACT over to QuickBooks, I click on this little option here, which gives me two directions. One, push information from Act to QuickBooks. The other, push information from QuickBooks to Act. In this case, I've edited the information in here, and I'm going to push it over. It's done. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, 1 second. Let me just make sure. Okay. Okay. And now that information is in Act, in QuickBooks, I should say. Okay, now we've covered the, how, and by the way, you can also then, as I said, you can click on over here. Okay, it's not going over there. Wouldn't be a demo without some bugs. Okay, and now we can just click on there and it gets updated. So now let's go into, and still in the theme of saving time, let's go over to the QB transaction tab, because you can see the QB transaction tab here. It's showing all the transactions that we've made. Okay, now let's say that that Chris Huffman calls us back and he says, that was great. I've really enjoyed that product. I want another one. What you can do here is you can look them up, right click and say duplicate the transaction. Click here. Do you really want to duplicate this transaction? Boom, ready to go. Click on Save Yes. Indicates the transaction, and you can see here you've got another one. Now this isn't just stored in Act. This is automatically written into QuickBooks and then reflected in Act. Okay. Now, see that the transactions here. This obviously is a contact we just created or a customer we just created. But if we wanted to go over here, we can click on, and let's remove the filter. Okay, we can see at one view all of our transactions. Okay, so this is called the global view, and we can see all of our transactions in one place, and every single one of them, you can see the type, you can see the date, and I'm going to show you a little bit later about how you can work with this data, but it really, really is manageable, filterable, and you'll be able to sort and filter by dates, transactions, types, numbers, amounts, even sales reps, as you can see over here. Okay, so I covered that. Let's save time. Okay, so now all of this data gets updated every single night. I'm just going to pivot over here. Gets updated every single night in a program called Qsync. So it updates all the changes and pulls them down into Act. So you're always getting the latest updated version. And then if for any reason during the day you wanted to do a quick refresh, you can click on here and then click on refresh. I'm not going to do that, but it will bring down any changes that may have been made during the day. Okay, so let's say a colleague tells you that a transaction has taken place. It was only an hour ago. You can grab that right there. So it's not a dynamic link. Okay, so you're not seeing a live link, which is absolutely key because Act users like to take their data with them. They like to take it away from the office, like to have it on their laptop. They like to sync. If there's a dynamic link, the moment that you walk out your office door, you're losing that connection and you're losing all the data here. With Qsales, because it downloads it directly into your database, you've got that live connection when you want to force an update, but because it's in your database, you can take it with you and have access to all of that information, even offline away from the office. Okay. Now, let's see. Okay, so let's say here that a customer, you're talking to Alex here, and he says, that was great, but can I get a copy of my invoice? What you can do, instead of pivoting over to QuickBooks, you pull this up. Now, even if you're in offline mode, you're away from the office, you don't have any connection to the office, you can pull up an invoice, okay, or click here and click on deliver, and you can send it out by email. Okay, so you're able to very, very easily manage the data, report on customers, be as accountable as you'd want to be, even when you are away from the office. Okay, so now let's see, converted patch transactions. Okay, another way of saving time, and this is something that a lot of people in my industry use, where they work with customers either on a consultant basis or a service basis, and they don't want to bill them every single time. Okay, what they want to do is they want to record histories in ACT. So in this case, I'm going to say record a history, and I'm going to put it to last Friday. Okay, and I'm going to say that it was a billable history. Okay, and I'm going to set it at 1 hour. Okay, so imagine you've come back from a service call, or you've gotten off a phone call, or you've even recorded this information in companion or handheld contact and recorded that history back to your ACT. Now you're at the end of the week or the end of the month, whatever your billing cycle is. Okay, and just want to hold on 1 second here. You click on Tools. You can go down here, click on Qsales, and say, let's search for billable histories. Okay, and I'm going to say last week. It finds, here's a billable history, convert to an opportunity. Do you really wish to convert this history to an opportunity? You want to look up that opportunity now? Okay, now you've got that opportunity. And you have the ability, because as what I showed you earlier, you click on link to contact, make sure that's linked. You've got the ability to now convert to an invoice. Okay, I'm not going to go through that process again because I'm going to try to create a new item, but I can now, without typing anything in again, I can create bills out of the history that I have recorded in ACT. And again, imagine being out in the field, recording histories on your device, or coming back and recording it in ACT. All of that gets tracked and stored so that you can convert that into an opportunity, and then by extension into a transaction. So again, saving you a lot of time. Now, one of the things that that we've seen this being used really, really effectively is where you've got a consultant that has a lot of subcontractors out there, and instead of giving them access to their accounting, which no one wants to do, what they do is they give them access to either their mobile device with access to the database, or access to a remote database where they can record histories. They sync them up, and then the business owner can then convert all of those aggregate histories. I just showed you one, they can be a bunch, and convert them into opportunities, and by extension into invoices. So it's a really, really good way to employ subcontractors who can account for their time, okay, and then convert that time without any additional typing into billable transactions. Okay. And that's those are some of the chief ways of really saving time with ACT. Now, in terms of working smarter and understanding your contacts as customers, Qsales is fantastic for that. So let's first visit, we've covered the QB transactions tab. Let's go to the QB data tab, okay? Now, obviously we've just pulled this customer up. So I'm going to look up all contacts and just select a random one here. Okay. Okay, not a great one. Let's see here. Okay, so here's one with a bit more data. So in this case, this person calls me up, Wayne calls me up, and I want a little, like a quick understanding of what Wayne's business is worth to me. So I can immediately look at the last 5 years. I'm not seeing a lot here. I see a couple of years ago, there's a $430 transaction. And then what I can see here is that there's a certain pattern here. So obviously he's signed up for something and we've billed him for 3 consecutive years at the same time. So this is a renewable service that we've billed them for. And then we can see, once I get that quick insight, I can look over here and say, okay, what's the lifetime sales? This customer over the lifetime of their business is worth about $1,700 to me. The average sales amount is $345, and the last payment was $430. Now, if I want to know how long it goes back, because this only goes back 5 years, I can quickly see here, this goes back to 2017, okay, and his last invoice was 2020. So that's a lot of pretty instant visibility on an account that I have just at a glance. So that's the beauty of having this QB data tab, is because it's summarized. Now, where is all this data coming from? The data that is downloaded into here is then being summarized here, okay? You can go through and drill here, and basically we've got someone on the phone. What you're going to see is a lot of activity, but not really going to give you much summarized understanding of what it's about. So this gives you that summarized understanding, and then once you take about 2 seconds to view and get that profile of what that customer is worth, you can then engage in a conversation with that customer with a lot greater insights. Okay, so you've got the lifetime value. Now, one of the other things that you may, because we saw the patterns here and we can see the transactions here, but what we don't know is what they've been buying. So with that, we can click on QB items and we can immediately see, okay, so this person has purchased Act Premium Cloud and has purchased it for 3 separate years. So now I instantly know, and I can drill into any one of these transactions. I can see that they've purchased Act for Outlook. Okay, so now I've got not only transactional frequency, I've not only got that overall summary of what their business is worth to me, but I've been able to, in a very short period of time, gather some purchase insights. So I understand what their purchase, their past purchases were, but I also understand the patterns with them too. So all of this gives me really, really quick insight. If I was in QuickBooks, I would be drilling down into one invoice or another, not seeing the same kind of patterns that I can see in a glance here. Okay. Now, the one other little thing, because I employ 30 people and I don't expect everyone to have the same kind of account familiarity as me, or to be able to take the time to understand an account when they're talking to them, and possibly create a credit risk where one can be avoided. So let's say this Wayne Robertson here wants to order additional business. What we've done is we've created this little alert here, this overdue alert notice here, that indicates what the status of their account is. So if you see past due 0 and the button's green, coast is clear, you can sell that person more products, more services, because they're identified as having an account in good standing. However, not sure I'm going to be able to find a whole lot of reds here, but if you run across a red one, then even your most, let's just say, lazy staff that doesn't want to drill down is going to see here, like you can see now, this is a past due account, $176. Before we get into any new business, let's talk a little bit about the business that's still outstanding. Okay, so that's what we talk about, understanding contacts as customers. We can see instant account profiles, and we can also have these little alerts. We can see lifetime values and things like that. Okay, now one other thing I want to show you here under the QB data, because we're going to get into this later here. Okay, you can see things like the past due amounts. Okay, so you can see total balance, you can see whether they're 0 to 30, 31 to 60, and so on and so forth, and even 121 days plus. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit later how you can use that information. Now, the last part, and this is my favorite part, and that's how to find information fast and easy in ACT. So the first thing that I get is, I get a customer, they call me up about an invoice. Okay. So I click on, okay, before looking up the contact, I need to find an invoice. So let's say I'm in Susan's record here. Someone else has called me. Instead of looking up the contact, they say, I've got such and such an invoice. Okay, so I click on look up invoice here on the toolbar, or look up transaction. And she says, my transaction is 60000. Okay, I click on, it's an invoice. I click on OK. Shows me the customer immediately. Oh, okay, you're such and such. Who's the contact there? Okay. Christine. Thank you. Let me just push that information up to ACT. Okay. Now, what's your question? You've got a question on invoice 6,000. Perfect. Let me just pull it up. Okay. He goes through and he asks me some questions about that. But because I've had all of this information at my disposal, and remember, this information is available to me in my ACT database, even if I'm away from the office. So now I've got this information. I can respond to any of the questions. Let's say he wants to change the quantity or anything. I can do that right then and there, save. But now he says, okay, I want to have some information that's not available here. I can click on OK. Instead of searching for it in QuickBooks, it automatically opens it up in QuickBooks at the click of a button, and I can make some changes and email it out that way as well. Okay, so that's a really easy way. And what you'll find is that if I go even over to the global transactions, I've got the ability to put in here 6, click on find, and it's going to find it that way too. So there's all kinds of ways of finding things. Okay, and then let's say I find it here. I can right click and say, go to contact, and it's going to go to the contact. So what you're seeing is a real integration, not just a downloading of the data, but an integration of the data that makes it functional, where you can really find things quickly. Okay, so in this case, we're under a contact here. Search on a contact, I can see in his QB transactions, or I can pivot to the global transactions, which I've shown you. Now, one of the things that I can do here is I'm going to go over to the global transactions. Now here's all my transactions completely unfiltered. So what I can do here is, because they're downloaded to my, my ACT as custom tables, I've got all the same kind of filtering functions and sorting functions that I would have normally in custom tables. So I'm going to click on here and I'm going to say, show me only the invoices. And now I'm going to say, so imagine I am a sales manager. I'm away from the office. I don't have access to QuickBooks, but I've got my laptop with me. I can click on here, show me, let's just show last year. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to sort by sales rep. And I'm going to say, well, let's do review on that Ken Quigley guy. Okay. Now I can see all of this. And I can say, okay, I've got this total value here. And let's see here. I can see all the value. I could see the total sales here. See what I did is I right-clicked down on this toolbar and I selected sum. I can add additional summaries. So average. So I can see that last year I had $15,957 in sales. $997 was my average transaction. Okay. Pretty fantastic insights. How many transactions? 16. Okay, so these were the invoices. These were the dates from last year. This shows me the total. This shows me the average. Try doing that in QuickBooks. This is something that, because the data is downloaded in custom tables, you've got the same kind of filtering, sorting, organizing capabilities you would have, you know, in custom tables of any kind. Okay, now, one of the beauties of organizing this data into a CRM, it's great to have insights, but let's talk about actionable insights. So let's say that I've just come out with a new update to a product, okay? And I want to find all the people in my database that have purchased the previous version, okay? So what I can do, let's say I want to sell them Act V24, okay? I'm going to click on here, my items, which shows me all my items, okay? And now I'm going to look for all the people that have purchased, let's say, Act V21, okay? I'm going to hit Control F. Here, Control F. Actually, I can just click on here. And I can type in 21. And here is Act Pro V21. Okay. Now close this. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to say, go to contacts. Going to take a moment and it's going to go to all the contacts in my database that have that particular purchase. So you can see 593, okay, that have purchased that product. But let's say that's going back too far. Let's say I pivot back to here and I want it to be in a certain date range. Okay, so I click on here again and I'm going to say just last year. See how many that is, probably not a whole lot. Okay, I'm going to say, you know what, last year is not good. I'm going to go to here and I'm going to click on a custom date and I'm going to say 20 and 2019. Perfect. Okay, so now I've got the same amount, but I can filter it if I wanted to filter it a little bit more narrowly. Okay, let's say I clear that. Okay, and now if I go to contacts, I can see 22. So that's how manageable the data is. Okay, but so I can create all of these contacts into a group and I can market them. Okay, now let's see what that actually looks like. If I click on over here, I click on my groups, because what I've done is I've created a group that actually has captured those contacts that have purchased Act Pro V22. So let's click on here. And this is not a static population. Any additional person that purchases a product that I've identified in this dynamic group will get added to this group. Okay, so what I've done is I've selected here QB sales items. I've selected the item field, contains, and I've put in Act Pro 22. That's it. Now, if I wanted to create an AMA template to send it out to them to announce the release of Act 24, all I've got to do is click on my marketing automation, point it to this group, and sends it out. And all of these people that have already been identified as being, you know, high prospects for upgrading, okay, they're added and targeted. Okay, so this is a way where you're getting far beyond anything that that QuickBooks can do. You're actually using QuickBooks data to harvest and target for marketing purposes the people in your Act database. Okay, now you remember when I, speaking of groups, remember when I pointed out earlier that there were contact fields showing, you know, how overdue an account was, people that were 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, so on and so forth. Well, what I've done is, because those fields were in Act as part of the contact database, I've created a dynamic groups so that I can quickly click here from a collection standpoint and see everyone that's at different stages of collections. And it harvests it all, and it's all dynamic, so that once you create the group, that information gets populated dynamically. Okay, how are we doing for time here, Joe?
Looking good.
Okay, so one of the other real powerful tools within Act and Qsales is the ability to report. If you look at QuickBooks, inside of QuickBooks, that's what people really use a lot, is the reporting functions. And those same kind of reporting functions are available to you in Act. If you want to find information and you want to understand customers, then you've got the ability to click on a report. And you've got things like, show me the top customers by date range, show me the top customers with a past due balance, top customers with high balance, top grossing products, top sold products. You've got a bunch of AR reports here, okay, and even sales reps. So let's pick one here, top customers with a past due balance. I'll select this, I click on next, okay, show me the top 10. Okay, and it immediately shows me these customers. If I want, let's say that I want to assign someone to do follow-up calls, I can immediately click here, create a contact lookup, export them to Excel, whichever I want. And now I've got these contacts. That's how easy it is. I went from creating a report to creating a lookup and ready to action these follow-ups. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so I'm back here. I want to run one more report. Okay, and let's say I'm the sales manager, and again, because of all of this information is in ACT, I can actually run a lot of these reports offline. I don't have to have QuickBooks running because the data is in ACT. And it's really kind of nice when you think about that. Like, the program really works like ACT users. We like to take our database with us. We take great pride in the fact that it's, on premise. We've got everything on our laptop, and this allows us to work really intelligently offline. So I've selected a sales report, and I'm going to say, show me last year. I'm going to click on next. And I immediately get a breakdown of all the sales. Okay. If I do here, I can quickly see this particular sales rep or that particular sales rep, and I can get some instant insights on all their sales. Okay, you can see the date range here, everything offline, wherever I am, just like ACT users. Okay. Speaking of, just one little thing I'm going to summarize, because we've seen how QuickBooks is running in the background. Okay, and that's great if you are a QuickBooks desktop user. However, let me just go here, and I'm going to click on open, and I'm going to click on, I'm going to open up a database that is integrated with QuickBooks Online. Okay, just to kind of show you how this works. When you think about it, QuickBooks Online, it's a whole different kind of thing when you're talking about savings time, because now you've got to log in. Okay, you've got to find the contacts, create the transactions. Just to kind of go here, click on Tools, Qsales. If I go to the admin settings, I can see here, it's remembered that this particular database is connected to QuickBooks Online. Okay, and now if I want, I can say edit the record. Okay, that contact's not linked. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to link them with unlinked. Okay, so now let's see here. Okay, I've got the ability. Yeah, it's not like it likes it when I have to close QuickBooks. I haven't normally pivoted, but what you can do is when you're starting from fresh and you launch into ACT without QuickBooks running. Okay, I didn't close QuickBooks completely, but when you go into it clean, you'll be able to create invoices without having QuickBooks ever in the background, and it will log into your QuickBooks Online for you right away. Okay, I'm not going to shut down everything because that's going to be bad television waiting for all the programs to restart. But that's how easy it is. You just launch into whatever database you want, and it will connect to either your QuickBooks desktop or your QuickBooks Online, whatever you have configured. Now, let's go back here. Okay, so we covered how it saves time, understanding your contacts as customers, finding information quickly and easily. We talked about some use cases, like with some of the customers where, we had subcontractors out in the field creating histories that we converted into invoices. We've had customers using the API version where they were paying for 10 licenses, and you saw how all the accounts receivable functions are now within ACT. They were able to reduce their QuickBooks licensing total by half, saving them like $4,200 a year, because instead of 10 users, they only needed 5 that needed to do the hard core QuickBooks functions. But for looking up account balances, they were able to get all the information they needed within Qsales, and that saved them a ton of money. So there's really an endless amount of use cases that you can have for how Qsales saves you time, understanding your contacts as customers, finding information quickly and easily, and also really saving you a lot of money. Okay, so let's talk about what it works with. So Qsales works with Act Pro, the desktop version, obviously, Act Premium, Act Growth Suite, all the desktop versions, and it will work, as we demonstrated, with the QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. Okay, so all that's groovy. What does it cost? It costs $10 a month per installation, $120 per year. And very, very small cost when you consider how much time it can save you. And when you're dealing with the API version, okay, we strongly recommend that you hire us to do the setup. The classic version is really, really easy because what it's doing is it's actually linking the two programs together, and therefore whatever data is open is linked by default. But API is a lot more sophisticated, has a lot more power, but it requires a little bit more of an environment setup because you're connecting remote machines to your QuickBooks database through an API that your office is publishing. So if that sounds complicated to you, then you're probably going to want to pay the $80 setup. Because of the ease of Qsales Classic, that's the only one we've made for trial. But if you do graduate from Qsales Classic, you say, I want to broaden out my deployment of it. I want to have some of my remote employees, which we all have now, have constant access, then you can easily convert over to API with no additional cost. Okay. And the data will support one program or another. You don't have to erase it and re-download it. Okay. And that's what I wanted to cover. Joe, over to you. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I've got a few things over at act.com /Qsales. Okay, because there's going to be a lot to take away from today, but you can review at this link all the product info. You can take some of the featured tours and videos. You can kind of drill down and understand the pricing a little bit better. You can get information on your free trial, the getting started documentation, because I've tried to be thorough here, but really wanted to tell more of a story, okay, than, you know, a hardcore core sales pitch. So I hope that came across. And then some of the support resources that you've got, okay? But lots of really helpful videos. Here you're going to see a feature tour where you can click on all these different tabs and really see all the features and then highlight each one of these little numbers, and it's going to show you a little pop-up detailing it. And here's our support form as well. Okay, now over to you, Joe.
Great, thanks very much, Ken. Very, very powerful and relevant stuff for the audience here today. And I just want to note that we do have about a half a dozen questions in the Q&A that we will get to momentarily. So please do stay on after the final slide here, and we'll address all of those with Ken's subject matter expertise. I do again encourage everyone, like Ken mentioned, to go who likes, like what you saw today, to go to the landing page at act.com /Qsales. Again, product info, features, tours, videos, free trial, tons of great information and content resources there to help you learn and also get off to a successful start should you move forward. Okay, finally, before we wrap up, I do want to make you all aware of two offers we have in market for you. For those of you that may be on an older version of ACT, we are offering $70 off the annual subscription price of ACT V24, which is our latest product. And this will run through the end of the calendar year this year. And for those of you who may be interested in or may already be using the basic level of our integrated marketing automation solution that comes as part of each subscription, we are also now offering 25% off of the paid tiers of the service, also through the end of the calendar year. So marketing automation is a great way to extend your reach to new prospects through, whether it be through campaigns or landing pages, but also a very powerful way to deepen the relationships you already have with your existing customers through things like newsletters or surveys or service reminders, maintenance notices, birthday notes, you name it. So ACT Marketing Automation lets the system basically do the work for you, automating those repetitive tasks so you can set it and forget it, so to speak, while serving up those results of your efforts to you in the form of hot leads, So you can follow up quickly while those opportunities are ripe. Okay, so we're at the end for today. On behalf of Steve, Ken, everyone at ACT, thank you again for your time. We certainly hope to hear from you soon. We will, as I mentioned, keep the webinar open for a bit to address the questions in the QA panel. And thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay, Joe, any questions you want me to start with?
No, we can answer them online, Ken, through the written portion, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I'll go through this. Do you want me to click and display them because I've only got the one monitor?
My understanding is they won't display, Ken, so you just
Okay,
respond
perfect.
in the Q&A.
Okay. Okay, so Michelle says, I've had this software for years, but I've been unable to integrate it with the newest version. We've completely rewritten it with both the API and the classic version. It now works with all versions of ACT and all versions of QuickBooks. The thing with classic, you have to understand, because you're actually linking the programs, you have to match the bitness. So 32-bit QuickBooks has to match with a 32-bit version of ACT. So if you're using from ACT, I think 2019 up to version 23, then you can use from QuickBooks 2018 up to version 2021. Okay, QuickBooks 22 and 23 are 64-bit. ACT 24, sorry, I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, are 64-bit. So the 64-bit matches with the 64-bit, 32 with 32. Now, that's the classic. API matches, it links the data, not the program. So you can mix bitnesses. So while it is a little bit more involved and technical to set up, you've got that compatibility flexibility that you don't have with the other version. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. If we have a desk-based version of ACT that syncs to the cloud for remote users, does Qsales still work? So one of the things that we're doing, and basically, as you've seen, the data gets imported in ACT, there has to be schema changes to support that. So we're working with ACT right now. Right now, what you can do is you can download your main data file, run the updates to create all the fields, like you saw the QB data, you saw the custom tables. Those have to be created and your schema changed. But what we're doing is we're working with ACT to actually enable a temporary trial of custom tables that would allow you to then, from the web, import in all the schema changes. Okay, that's pending, so don't buy right now based on that. Right now, the option is to download your database, make those changes, upload it again, and then all the schema changes will be passed down to the to your remote databases, and then you install Qsales on your remote databases. For those people that are using it on the web and only on the web, this program isn't designed for that. And anytime you're dealing with SDK, and I don't want to get too technical, but anytime that there's an add-on that changes the look and feel and functions of a program, those mostly won't be available in the cloud. Okay, because it's adding buttons and things like that that doesn't exist. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Jenny asked, does Qsales work with ACT Pro 20? Yes, it does. And QuickBooks Essentials. QuickBooks Essentials, I need to know what version it is. The version that you mentioned for Pro is 32-bit. It's compatible depending on what version of QuickBooks Essentials. I know it goes down to basic. I'm not super familiar with Essentials unless it's the online version. If the online version, it will work. Okay. Does it work with QB versions, all versions? In terms of tiers, which I think is what Linda's question is, Enterprise. We use Enterprise internally. The version that you're using is Enterprise 2023, which is a 64-bit version. So that will work with ACT v24. Okay. Okay. Okay, I prefer to work with desktop versions. All cloud programs require efficient access to the internet. Our location does not always have great internet access. Example was in, okay, with Word, those file I could not access. I think Thomas is talking about the benefits of working offline, okay, having the data on premise, which all ACT users are certainly going to echo. Okay. Is there a standard list of fields that need to sync? Those fields are created for you in your database. So they get applied to the database during the setup, and it's a setup wizard. So it's a very, very untechnical process. Basically, the only thing you've got to know at the beginning is, are you working with a new database or an existing database, which isn't normally a challenging technical answer for most people. Okay. Let's see, is there a standard list of fields? Okay, example, are service codes, parts, or does all the, your items get imported in, okay, during the initial transaction sync. You can also run a sync at any time to bring that data down, okay? Okay, so this all looks great, but we've been using Qsales since last year. Okay, and okay, that one I'll probably have to take offline because it looks like they're working with the API version. There's some technical questions. Is Act Pro desktop again available? I'm going to leave Joe to talk about that. I currently have Act for Web version 24 update 3. As I said, you can have Act for Web, but if you've got offline syncing, then it's the offline syncing clients that you're going to have the ability to work with. It doesn't integrate with the cloud. It's not a browser-based program. Okay. Very good question. Kit asks, do you need to buy custom tables? No, custom tables are included with it. You don't get any additional custom tables. You're not able to create custom tables for, different functions than what Qsales provides. Okay, that's why there's no additional, because you don't get a custom table manager. I mean, Act has supported custom tables natively since 2008, but it's the custom table managers that people pay for. So it creates the ability to design custom tables and nest custom tables. None of that functionality is manageable or controllable within Qsales. You just, we create kind of the structure that the data gets downloaded into. You can't really customize it beyond that. And as I said, there is no custom table manager. Okay, so I think I've covered most of the questions. Joe, is there anything that I missed?
No, that's great. Thank you, Ken. Just final reminder, for more information, go to act.com/Qsales. Vast amount of information there and resources, and to start a free trial if you'd like to move forward.
Yep.
If not, thank you all very much. Appreciate your time, Ken, and all the attendees. Happy holidays, everyone. And we will talk soon. Take care.